What's up, coach? Today I'm sitting down with Nicki Wilson and we're talking all about the Enneagram, specifically how you can use it in your business, with your relationships, with your clients, with your bosses, and with your employees. Are you ready? Let's get started. What's up, coach? I'm Beverly Simpson. I'm the owner of B Simpson Fitness, the founder of the PT Profit podcast and PT Profit Formula. Today, for the podcast, I'm sitting down with Nicki Wilson and we talked all things Enneagram and how specifically you can use this personality tool, how it is unique and different than the other personality tools that are out there, how you can use it specifically for your business and your relationships with your bosses, employees, and also your clients. So let's go ahead and roll that interview. Nicki, oh my gosh, y'all, you guys are in for a treat because we got two besties on the show today. I'm super excited to have you, Nicki. How are you?
Oh, Beverly. I don't know if they're in for a treat. Something. I don't know. Honestly, a little worried it's going to go off rail here.
No, it's amazing.
No, I like it. I like it. I mean, Beverly and I, does your audience know we had a podcast together?
Yeah, we talked about it, but not in.
Yeah, we used to have a podcast together and it was so fun. Mm-hmm. So fun. I miss it. I do miss it.
I do miss it too. And honestly, because of that podcast is what really inspired this episode, talking all about the Enneagram. So for those of you who don't know who this amazing human is, can you share with us a little bit, Nicki, about who you are, who you serve, what you do, and how you got
it? Okay. Well, my name is Nicki Wilson. We're on video too, right, Bev?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for you guys. It's really cold here. I live in Texas, y'all, and it's normally like 70 degrees and it's like a blistering 30. And I walked because I got to get my 10,000 steps in before noon. That's like we'll talk about this. This is Enneagram 3 problems. But it was like the wind was blowing at my face. Like I couldn't even put makeup on afterwards. It just
30 degrees is cold. That's cold for me.
And it's windy. I mean, y'all, that's a lot for my little Texas heart. It's going to be really cold. So anyway, if I couldn't even put on makeup, my face was frozen. So here we are. But anyway, my name is Nicki Wilson, and currently I would call myself a body image coach. My training, my college degrees are in social work. So I say, like, I'm not a practicing social worker, but I feel like so much of what I do is a lot of social work. It's a lot of identifying people's problems or problem areas, issues in their life they want to do better, and then making a plan for them, helping them make a plan, helping them execute it. I mean, I was a trainer, am a trainer still. I kind of took a break from the fitness industry for a while, you guys, and Beverly can attest, I'm back on the fitness train. Most of my clientele, this will be helpful for your audience, is moms who are late 30s, 40s, who really struggle with body image, who struggle to just have that acceptance piece of, yeah, you're not 130 pounds anymore, but you can still be healthy, still pursue health without pursuing weight loss as the end goal. And for a while, I think I was really struggling. I think when I met Beverly, actually, how many years ago, Bev? 5 years ago? 4, 5?
It's only 3, girl.
3?
I know.
Hyper space time right now in the era of COVID.
Yeah, the years are crazy.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I think I was kind of in this really weird juxtaposition where I was afraid that fitness was harming people's body image and acceptance with their body and their relationship with their body. So I just kind of pumped the brakes a little bit, but y'all, I think I'm now leaning into my fitness love and passion. It never went away for me. I just wanted to step back and examine the body acceptance, body confidence piece on its own, and heal people's relationship with their bodies. But I think I'm really honestly with this virus, I don't even know if we say it because it'll flag it all and we'll get like links to 100 different things. So we'll just say the virus. I think it's really pushed me back into, you know what? Here's the deal, you guys. We get one chance. We get one vessel. We get one body, and you really have to take care of your house, and so I just love that, so much of what I do is showing people that the journey to anything, whether it's health or business, anything, it's so not linear.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of the beauty of this, where I've just kind of allowed myself to take a break, and now I'm back in. So anyway, I do a lot of things digitally. I have some DIY fitness programs. I had a body confidence membership for a while. And so I'm really leaning back into creating programming, strength programs for women currently.
I love it.
And I'm a mom, and we're in quarantine right now. My son is in quarantine, so we're sharing a computer. And and Beverly, so we're talking about the Enneagram today. I'm sure Bev will kind of usher us into this, but before the virus, I was getting certified. I mean, I'm like this close, you guys, to being a certified. Did you know that, Bev? Did you know? I secretly did it because I just turned 40. I'm about to be 41, but I kind of had this like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 40. Like, I'm going to do all these things. And then the virus hit, and it was like, I was thrust back into like, oh my gosh, I'm homeschooling my kids. Oh my gosh, like I don't even know what life is. So I've had a really weird year, to be honest with you. So, but the Enneagram is something that's just like always on my mind, always in the back of my mind as a tool to work on myself and work on relationships with people.
So you're almost a coach. You're a certified Enneagram coach.
Yes.
This close.
This close.
Amazing. Are you going to finish that this year?
Yeah, I need to finish it. Like I could finish it like this week if I.
Oh, well, I'm really excited about talk about the Enneagram today, because the truth of the matter is that it honestly changed my life, and I didn't get introduced into it until I met Nicki, and it changed my life, and for many reasons, because number one, it really helped me understand myself and how I respond to things, and I could really look outside of myself to be like, I'm responding this way because this is why. And I just had a base of, I had a context where I could go back and kind of look outside of myself about what's happening. And not only did it do that for me, but it also helped my relationships with other people, and it improved my relationship with my friends because I could really understand where they were coming from based on a lot of the info that we talk about in this episode. And honestly, I should keep looking, because what was amazing is that Nicki was the one that introduced it to me. And then we did on our podcast, we did a live, like, what's Bev's number? And it was so interesting because for the longest time I was like, I'm every number. And then when I realized what number I really was, it was like, of course, I'm no other number except this.
Yeah.
So
well, and Deb, you need to link that episode of Actually Mamas, like link that one with Beth to your show notes.
I don't think it exists anymore.
No, it does.
Oh, it does? Okay, well then, yeah, I will, because it was a really.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It exists.
So
it's so helpful, and it's so meaty.
Yeah, it was meaty, but you're going to give them this insight a little bit. My hope is because not only did the Enneagram change my life, but listen, it's really helped my relationships with my clients. Mm-hmm. It's really helped my relationship. It helped me find an assistant and find someone and grow my team based on the number. Like I love them. But I asked him, I was like, I need you to come with all these personality tests because I need to know who you are.
I know. Somebody actually, like, I had put this, and then we'll get into it because people are probably like, what are you even talking about? But I had put a couple of years ago, and I was looking for an assistant. Like, I only want these 3 numbers. And someone was like kind of mad, like, and you're discriminating. I'm like, is there Enneagram number discrimination? I don't know. Of course, we live in such a sensitive world. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for this down the road. But I need you to know this personality and this work will not work with any other numbers, because I know myself so well. So anyway, it was really funny. But so for your listeners, just the Enneagram is an ancient, like they don't really know the exact origins of where it came from, but a lot of monks used to use the Enneagram. And the Enneagram is basically essentially it's 9 different numbers, 1 through 9. Okay, and there's 3 different triads with the numbers, and I'll kind of touch on it a little bit, but you guys are going to want to go do more information, and I'm sure Beverly will link this, but to your Enneagram coach, yourenneagramcoach.com, where you can take the assessment if you're not sure and get all this good info as we touch on it here. But basically, the Enneagram will label you as a 1, 2, 3, like you identify as a 1, you identify as a 2, 3, etc., up to 9. And the difference between the Enneagram and personality tests, I love, this is where I think it really gets good because it deals with your core motivations instead of your personality and persona and like, just maybe some of the things that you're just more prone to. Like, I think Beverly and I on the Myers-Briggs, are we both ENFJ?
Well, I have a funny side story about that. But yes, I identified as an ENFJ for a long time. But when I got typed by Alex and said I'm an ESFP.
ESFP. Okay. Well, either way, when we were both thinking we were both ENFJs, it's kind of laughable because Beverly and I have a lot of the same characteristics, but like on a very surface level, I can see it. But like when we would start talking, I would just be dying laughing, like there's no way we're the same Myers-Briggs. But it's really because that's a very like overall generalized personality test where this really deals with core motivations, childhood wounds, how you perceive time, future, present, or past stances. It gets kind of in-depth and complicated. But so when you kind of look at it from those perspectives, you're like, okay, well, this totally makes sense how Beverly and I could be a very similar Myers-Briggs, but a totally different Enneagram number, as we just have like such different core motivations. So.
For me, like when I look at the personality tests, you take a personality test and they kind of determine it based on the choice. And the Enneagram looks at the why you made the choice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we'll get into it, but just even, for example, I think, Beth from your Enneagram coach talked to Bev and I, and she was like, if somebody said, hey, I'm coming over really quick to bring this whatever it is to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody's coming over, and you put on your glasses. We each wear different color glasses with a lens of why do we feel the need to like clean up house before this person comes over, and each number will have a different reason why the house needs to be tidy before a visitor comes over. Does that make sense? So it's interesting in the really small things, but also in the bigger things too. So
I love it. Okay. And what's also interesting for when I talk to someone who's new, and honestly, me too, when I was first learning about the Enneagram, you start to look at all like the bad things or the negative things, because when you start to like look at the core motivators, it's easy to get into like, oh, I'm the bad number. I didn't want to be a 6.
Well, everybody thinks they're the bad number. And I think that's important for your audience to hear. Like if you start to dig into this, which I highly recommend that you do, the bad things are going to jump out at you first because it's going to call your name. You know what I mean? It's kind of going to call out your BS, and you're like, oh, I kind of do that. And each number has a healthy place that they live in, a moderately healthy place, and then like an unhealth that they live in. And that's kind of the characteristics that you dwell in that are negative and unhealthy. But the other thing I love about the Enneagram, as opposed to other personality tests, is you can climb up and out from an unhealthy place where you have all these bad characteristics into the healthier place where you're just really operating out of your best self and your best strengths. So it's not like a doom and gloom, like you look at every number and you're like, oh my God, but it's like, okay. But also on the flip side of that, a 6 has so many great qualities that I know I can work on and be a better friend, be a better wife, be a better coach. And you don't have to live in the doom and gloom of it.
I love it. So can you break down, so you started to tell us about the triads, but can we go into the actual numbers and then the triads?
Sure. And again, you'll want to assess yourself and kind of, dig into a little more than just what we're talking about here, because I actually mistyped myself for like a year before I really listened to some really great teachings. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually an Enneagram 3.
What did you think you were?
I thought I was an Enneagram 2. And we'll talk about it. Okay, so 1 is the perfectionist, the moral perfectionist. So 1s are people who really value being right, being good, being righteous. They're not a lot of they're kind of do-gooders. And on the bad side of 1, they have an inner critic that just constantly is in their ear telling them what they could have done better, what they should have done, how bad they are, or, if you would have just studied harder, done better, given this client more attention, whatever it is. It's a literal voice in their head that never goes away and just tells them all the ways that they're wrong. And I've never really talked to a 1 who's like, my inner critic is nice. It's more like once they figure out that they're a 1, they start to block out that inner critic. But 1s are what they call the gut triad. So a lot of your response, it's not necessarily emotions or a logical thought, but it comes from just knowing, you know. It's that gut response. This is right. I know it's right. I'm going forth and doing it. So they have that really fire in their gut, which could honestly make them struggle sometimes with anger and bitterness and resentment. Because a lot of things 1s struggle with and a lot of people mistype as a 1 because I think people get on our nerves as every number. You know what I mean? We're like, you're on my nerves, you're not doing things right. But the 1s kind of can't let it go. And I've heard my 1 friends tell me before that they feel like they're the captain of the ship. And it's or the general of the army. And if they're not on directing and doing all the things, then everybody else will fall down on their duties and not perform, and nothing will get done, or they'll die, whatever it is. It's 1s are very, they just have that work ethic that I'm going to get it done and I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it 100%. And you're going to count on me, or else the inner critic is just going to come in and berate them, So that's kind of a 1. And I mean, we could talk about every number for 3 hours, but we won't. I'll move on to a 2. A 2 is the helper. So 2s are very empathetic. They're very compassionate. That's what I thought I was. A lot of people in the health profession, where you're helping people, meet goals and teaching people, and just a lot of people will mistype themselves as a 2. 2s are very, they're not an aggressive stance, but they're very aggressive in offering help. And I always say, you're a 2. This is how I just think it's a telltale to me. A 2 knows instinctively what to do when somebody is suffering, somebody is in trouble, somebody needs help. They are the first responders in the world of Enneagram. They just know what to do. It's if if you have a loss in your family, twos are the first people texting you. Can I bring you a meal? Can I pick up your kids from school? Can I take care of getting your house cleaned for you? They're very like aggressive, and they're just aggressive in their help. And they just know instinctively, like, this is what people need right now. They know what you need before you even know sometimes what you need. And sometimes that's very welcome. And sometimes it's not so welcome, when somebody's telling you exactly what you need and you really don't like that. Right. So twos also in a really bad place can manipulate people for a love response. They can overextend their help and forget about their own needs. That is a very telltale sign of a two, is just giving, and expecting love in return, kind of low key. And then when they don't get it in return, they become very upset and kind of lash out or withhold love, or just a general woe is me kind of attitude, which nobody likes to hear. Again, those are kind of the bad things, but twos are just incredible helpers. They're in the feeling triad. So they are going to be acting upon feelings rather than logic or the gut response. They, twos tend to value relationships more than any other number. And they will like put themselves in a tailspin of, like, I call it vain imagination, where they just create all these scenarios with people in their head that really aren't true. Nobody ever said that, but they're so relationally wound up that oftentimes it prevents them from taking action. They have a very hard time taking action in life. And ones do too. They are often have a hard time taking action because it's not good enough yet. It's not right. So they kind of spin their wheels or stay on that hamster wheel. And a two has a hard time making decisions because they're constantly thinking about how relationally this is going to matter.
Interesting.
So, okay, moving on to a three. This is my area of expertise because I am a three, and those are the achievers. And probably a lot of people, probably even your listeners, Bev, or the people you coach, can identify or mistype as a three, right? Because we kind of thought you were maybe a three.
We thought I was a three. Then we thought maybe I was an eight. And
I thought you were an eight. Personally, you have the most aggressive kind of personality, in my opinion.
She says it in love. I know.
In total love. I was like, dang, this girl, she's aggressive. She's an eight. That was in my head. And you're never supposed to label people. That's like a cardinal sin of Enneagram. You don't want to label people. That's never good. You want them to come to it on their own. But I had Beverly explore it a little bit until we actually decided she's something else, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But a three is an achiever. And the thing about threes, they are in the feeling triad, but they're feeling suppressed. So instead of operating on feelings, what they do is they shove their feelings down. And they shove and shove and shove. And the three will be a chameleon to any situation. They can kind of squeeze in. They're usually very gregarious, very charming, but they kind of can just get along any situation and morph and mold. And the thing that comes with that is bad is that you often don't really know yourself. You don't really know what you like. You don't really know who you are because you can just go into every area of life and fake it till you make it. And you usually make it, but you're fake when you get there. You haven't done any work. So you just arrive because people really look to threes. They tend to be very outgoing. They tend to be very motivating. There are a lot of motivational speakers, a lot of coaches, just very gregarious, helpful people who are like your biggest cheerleader, and they kind of just get things done. And one of the struggles, even for me, like I was just telling you guys, like I had to take a step back and like kind of figure out what's my path, what am I feeling? Used to, I would just dive into the next thing because I knew I could. I honestly, I've told Beverly this before. I've never really like done anything where I haven't succeeded in. And when I don't succeed, I drop out immediately. When I start to feel that pain and that those suppressed feelings start coming up, I drop out. And Beverly's experienced that with me in several different ways. We kind of laugh about it because I don't like to be vulnerable. I don't like to seem vulnerable. I like to look, even though I don't have mom makeup today. See, I'm just a healthy 3. I'm working on myself. I don't like to look in like I'm not put together, like I don't have it all together. And when somebody calls my number, they know it really like bothers the 3. They don't like to be called out and be vulnerable and they really fear failure and they really don't like vulnerability. So
you say that because for me, like when I know someone's a 3, I'm very, to me, I feel like 3s are magnetized. Like they're so magnetic because of their because of their energy in terms of their like extrovertedness, but because they have that chameleon side, I feel like they can really connect with you really quickly.
yes.
For me, I am drawn to, it's like I could find the 3 in the room and I will stand next to.
Yes. And they're very aggressive stance. So 3s are future oriented, aggressive stance. So it's one of those things they're going to come out and they're going to tell you exactly what they feel, but it may not be exactly what they feel. They're going to tell you to win you over. They're just charmers. I mean, they really are charmers. And so a lot of times in a work situation, you might be like, oh my God, this person's too good to be true. And then when push comes to shove for the 3, or they realize like, oh my God, I know I told them that I was really good at this or I was versed in it. I kind of wasn't. And then they kind of ghost you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's an issue with the 3. You know, they'll ghost you to kind of self-preserve themselves. Like, hey, I'm out, you know, I'm just gonna duck under here and buy. And you know, that could be a potential work issue with the 3.
Yeah, for, you know, an employee and or a client. Like if you're with the client and all of a sudden they're not adhering, or maybe you're, you know, they're never going to tell you that this is too hard. Your 3s are not going to be your complainers. Your 3s are going to be the people that are like, oh yeah, this is great. And then don't call you back.
Yeah. You'll be like so confused because you had the best phone conversation. I mean, I walk away. I have to really watch myself. I've learned so much about myself. Bless my heart. Just like everybody thinks they're my best friend. Mm-hmm. They talk to me. And then like months later, there'll be like weirdness. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And, you know, people will be like, well, I kind of thought we were on this level. And I'm like, oh, I'm on the level with everybody. You know, it's just my conversations are free and my personality, I think it's so warm and welcoming, but I can also know, Beverly knows I have really high or low outer walls, but really high inner walls. But that's very confusing to people, I think, for the 3.
Yeah. Because a 3 will connect with you and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is my best friend. And but they're best friends with everyone. Yes.
And then they're kind of like, well, that hurts my feelings. I'm like, oh, well, I kind of only have 3 friends, actually, when it comes down to it. You know what I mean? Like I only have 3 people that I share my real self, because 3s tend to feel very unsafe being who they are. They really struggle because they feel like people need them and they need them to be this persona. And when they fail or they let people down, that's like the worst thing for them. Failure is like the worst thing for them. So that's a big struggle. And of course, when I found out I was a 3, I was doing a long road trip by myself and listening to this amazing teaching by Suzanne Stabile. And one of the things she said was 3s have to have an automobile or a car that is like no one else. And I was like, yes, that's me. What an a-hole. Like, that's so superficial, but I hate it when people have the same car as me. Like it really bugs me. So I was like crying. That's so superficial, but I was like, we have to be unique. We're very aesthetic. We like our aesthetics. We like to look good. You know, for those of y'all listening, like who are fitness professionals or trainers, like 3s will be some of your best clients because they like to look good and do the right thing and be the perfect one, be the top scorer. And they're very high achievers. Mm-hmm. So I was crying over they're very materialistic workaholics. That's the bad part of threes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, our fours, tell us
about. All right, fours, these are the artists. These are the authenticity people. They're also in the feeling triad, and fours are the most feeling number. Fours feel as though they are so unique, they can never fit in. And that grieves them. They are the people who love to feel their emotions. And when people like me try to fix an emotion, it really makes the four upset. They like to feel the range. They have the widest range of emotions and they want to feel them. So if they're angry, they really want to stay in the anger. If they're sad and feeling like they need to listen to really sad music and cry and lament, they enjoy it. I don't think they would say in the moment, I'm really enjoying like thinking about my past breakups. Thank you. But they really are into feeling all the feels and letting them be that way. Because of this, they also have a really hard time taking action. Because every step of the way, a four feels as though they might come across as inauthentic, or even worse, be inauthentic and fall into some trap that doesn't allow them to really be them and be themselves. Mm-hmm. You do find a lot of addiction, depression in fours because of the kind of the lonesome emotional nature. At their best though, oh my gosh, they're the creators, they're the artists, they're the musicians who are constantly creating new things and new experiences and wanting you to go out and experience life, experience something new, value yourself, value the space that doesn't get used within. Like they are the best at like drawing you out of naturally who you are and wanting you to be that authentic self. So fours, tend to kind of hole up sometimes. They might seem very introverted, emotional, but very creative, artistic in nature. So we love the fours for that reason, because they're just that, like, let's see the beauty in everything and everyone. So we love our fours for that reason.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready for five.
Yeah, let's go.
The investigators, the investigators. So fives are going to be on the Enneagram 1 through 9. Fives are going to be the most reserved, the most seemingly introverted. Now, there can be extroverted fives, for sure. They just tend to be more drawn in, more withdrawn, and they love to research things. They love to know everything there is to know about anything they want to know about. And those people, right? Just like the investigators, they love to have information. They hold information as power, as like the highest knowledge. And they kind of like to kind of have that over other people. Fives get very, very exhausted by too much interactions with people. They are very easily drained. But I think the good thing in a five operating in their best, in their highest health, is a really great friend who they're just the people, like, they're going to shoot you straight and they know what they know and they're going to help you however it is that you need. And they're not going to be like this weird, like, I don't know, there's not going to be a weird exchange of energy. It just is going to be like, okay, this is like what I'm going to do for you, and this is what I need you to do for me, and I need you to not to like remain out of my space for too long. So I love fives because I feel like you kind of get what you get, and they're not trying to bring any emotion into it. It's a very logical. Fives are in the head triad, so they use a lot of analytics and logic. Now, this causes them a lot of times also to have a hard time taking action and doing, because they're constantly researching. If I just do this one, if I just find out a little bit more, I'll be the expert. If I just, just read about it more, find out a little bit more about it, and just know the most, then I will take action. Well, guess what? Sometimes you can never know everything about everything. So that kind of hinders you, right? So that's a lot of times what you're dealing with fives.
Okay. The 6.
You want to talk about the 6, the loyalist?
The loyalist. Well, there's 2 types of 6s.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. So I'm the 6. I'm the counterphobic 6.
So there's phobic 6s, which Beverly is not a phobic 6. Like, actually, when you talk about a 6 as a phobic, you're kind of like, oh, that just doesn't make sense. And then when you talk about the counterphobic 6, you're like, okay, that's totally Beverly.
To the T.
Yes, most people identify as a phobic 6. So a phobic 6, they are constantly looking out the horizon and seeing everything that can go wrong. See, it feels very negative, but they're just seeing like, okay, if A plus B equals C, I need to do this. And then they have like this scenario for every scenario, the backup scenario for every scenario, right? 6s use what they call the inner committee. So Beverly's laughing only because how many conversations have we had? I'm like, are you talking to me? Or are you talking to your inner committee? And she's always talking to her inner committee. She uses my text messages. She texts me as like the soundboard as her inner committee. Does that make sense? And I'm just psychologically here for it. Like, Bev's actually talking to her inner committee. I'm going to let her do that on my text. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. But the inner committee, so they're constantly seeing, well, if I do this, this will happen, this might happen, this might happen. It's like their mind can't get unboggled with different scenarios. So imagine it's really hard for them to land. It's not that they don't take action, it's just really hard for them to land because they're so fearful that they'll land in the wrong place. Decision. And then it'll be catastrophic if they make the wrong decision. And you're kind of like sometimes just like, well, if you make the wrong decision, like, what's the worst that can happen? And that's actually really helpful for a 6. Phobic 6s tend to be the loyalists. They tend to be people who, they're just the model citizens. Like, they're going to go to the 4th of July parade and honor our veterans because that's the right thing to do, because they have served our country. They're going to serve on the PTA because that's the right thing to do, because the teachers do so much for the children. They are going to go to the same hairstylist for years because that is the right thing to do, is to employ this person and not give them any shaky grounds or reason to think anything of you. And I think Beverly would attest to, a lot of times you're loyal just to feel the love, right? Like, we kind of like, they're loyalist in order to get something. Yeah.
And that literally only came out just from this podcast that came a couple weeks ago. But like, so the 6, one of the reasons why I did not identify with the 6 was for 2 main reasons. Is that fear is their ultimate, is their core sin, is the thing that keeps, holds them back. But the other thing about a 6 is that they tend to not be they're not your CEO. They're not the person that's like stand front and center. They're the
great employee.
Yeah, they're the great employee. They are your A player Bs, meaning that you are like as the visionary, you're like, I want this. Your 6 is going to be like, I'm going to make that happen for you. And you're not even going to have to guess.
Yeah. Or even if you treat me like dirt in the workplace, like, I'm still going to show up for the next 35 years and like serve you well.
Yes.
And so, we do get into 6s a little bit of like, maybe they put up with a little too much crap from people and they need to learn to like stand their ground. There's another part of a 6, though. This is where Beverly comes in, where there's the counterphobic 6, where they actually have the fear and see the fear, and they see the scenarios lined up and the catastrophic possibilities, but they go so aggressively head first into those things that they come across as like incredibly aggressive and in charge, because they have decided, instead of being fearful and running and hiding and like just abiding in that, they're going to do the opposite and like just beat it to a pulp, and like get through it and put their head down and just go, go, go. And so they really kind of become, like Beverly's saying, like the CEO, the people who jump out of airplanes, like just the people that are like so aggressively like in your face. Sometimes they almost seem like an 8, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I really see that in Beverly so much. Like, one thing I really love about Beverly that I see, 6s like a pattern of like expected behavior, and they don't, they're actually very like they're drawing a lot on the past, and so she reads the same books over and over.
I do, it's true.
And she watches the same dang movies over and over. I'm always like, have you seen, I love movies, I'm a movie connoisseur, and I'm like, how are we friends just on that fact alone? Because you are watching what is it, the vampire movie
Twilight. I watch like
Twilight every week, and that's it. Is like, I'm watching Twilight again, I'm watching Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, okay. But it's predictability, and when her mind needs to be taken off of the catastrophic possibilities, she goes to the comfort of the comfort of the norm and the feelings of like familiarity, which are really big, I think, for a 6.
It was. And so this is why, knowing my number was so powerful, because here are the examples, right? Is that, I'll never forget, I called Nicki and said, wait, because my husband's a 9, and we'll get to that. But I was like, wait, your mind goes blank? And Nicki was like, yeah. And my mind never goes blank. I mean, I really worked
Yes.
on it, but it cannot go blank. And so for me, I'm extroverted. So I am very, process on the outside. I'm always talking. And I'm literally, for me, it's comforting to work through worst case scenarios. So I will feel the fear and do it anyway, as long as I'm like, oh, okay,
Yes.
scenario. I still need to know what those are and just make the decision to do it anyway. And what's interesting too, it's easy for me to say that now, but when I didn't know that that's what was happening, I was just spending hours of time on this like thought loop.
Totally.
And I'll say things, I can usually get little like verbal cues from people, because they'll usually say things like, I think, or I feel, my gut says.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, I know where you're living, even if you don't know where you're living. So I was like constantly trapped in this thought loop, because the 6 is a head number. But it's just been so easy. It's been, now that I know it, I'm like, oh, okay, I know I need to make fear my friend. And for my people here, you guys know that fear is, brain-based. It lives in the lizard part of our brain, and everyone's going to get fear when we're making changes. That is true. But this is fear like to a different level. This is fear like, literally, like I'll call Nicki and be like, hey, how do I make sure my daughters don't get sucked into like human trafficking?
I'm not laughing. It's just, I'm laughing like on a friend level. It's so true. She'll be like, oh, if they watch this cartoon, are there sex traffickers undercover? I'm like, oh, what? How did you draw that conclusion?
My husband had to go into my Facebook and like delete all these things, because I was literally going down these like dark spirals of like, I walked by, when I was in my postpartum experience and flood of hormones, I was walking on 8th Street in New York, and I saw somebody doing drugs, and I just like bawled. I called my husband and was like, my children are going to be drug addicts. How do we prevent it? Well, they're going to be homeless.
Catastrophic. It's just like the catastrophic fears live there.
Yes.
And, and 6 is really one of the best pieces of advice. I think Susan Stabile, who's like the grandmother of the Enneagram, said one of the best things 6s can do for themselves when they get worked up. And everybody knows a 6, by the way, because it's a highly populated, especially now, you guys, where we're in the virus lockdown, like you'll identify a 6 very easily because they are the ones who are not okay. They're the ones who are having anxiety and loneliness and like catastrophic things. And one of the things Suzanne Stabile says, the best thing a 6 can do is write out all the things you're like having anxiety about and fearful of, and like give them a piece of your mind, just write them all out frantically, and then keep it for a week, like post it up somewhere, and then revisit it every day. Did this happen?
Yeah.
Happen? I mean, Beverly's going to hang up a poster that says my kids are homeless, drug addicts, sex trafficked. And she's going to be like, no, that didn't happen. It's just like to see your fear written out and like deal with it. Like, is okay. Like, are these very small things happening every day? No, like they end up not happening. So, and when they do, guess what happens? You typically move on and like find the way around. So I have just a lot of tenderness in my heart for my 6s because that fear thing is a real thing. Fear and anxiety are a really real thing.
Oh, I mean, literally just the other day we were sitting in Cheesecake Factory with the kids and I just started bawling at the table. And my husband was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I saw the trailer for The Vow on the Nexum and I was like, and how am I gonna, this is like a legit, I'm not even exaggerating. He just looks over and I'm crying and he's like, what are you crying about? And I was like, The Vow and our children and you. Like, I mean, he literally has to talk me off the ledge of like Beverly, there are over 400 murders in New York a year. Okay. And there's 38 precincts dedicated to it. And there's 1 dedicated to this. Okay. He literally has to like really like get me off the ledge because
one thing I really do like about 6s though, I feel like, because they're in the head triad, logic and like statistics and facts actually can combat a lot of that. Whereas like for me, I'm a feeling triad and like my husband will come at me with like statistics and facts and I'm just like, don't want to hear it. Just want to be sad, just want to live in my anxiety for a minute. But like, I feel like a 6 really like it clicks for them.
It does. This is why I teach systems and processes. I get so excited. I'm like, just do this. And then, right. So it's like, it's just awesome. I could talk about
it is. I know we can talk about 6s all day, but let me move on to 7s. 7s are the enthusiasts, which my husband says, hey, that's the best number. 7s operate, they're in the head triad. Okay. And they're very, very on top of that, feeling suppressive. And on top of that, they operate in a very small spectrum of emotions. And it's usually happy to very happy. They don't like to experience any pain emotionally. They don't like to experience emotional pain. They are enthusiasts. They are very big visionaries. They get you on board. They have the big visions, the exciting visions. They're the ones who are the most fun to go on vacation with. They tend to not have any anxiety. So I think 6s really enjoy 7s because to just hang out with them, they don't have a lot of anxiety. They just kind of bowl forth. They're very future oriented. They're in an aggressive stance. So your fun friends who never seem to have a care in the world, who always have the good ideas, those are 7s. And they really don't, they aren't trying to be snarky or, give you little platitudes of encouragement. They really like, here's their operating as happy to really happy, ecstatic. And they don't go into that range of like, they don't feel sadness and horror and fear and anxiety. They just don't have the capacity. They literally like don't experience that. So, 7s in health, great visionaries, great enthusiasts. They bring people together so well and work. I think they're really great team members or great leaders of teams, as long as they have some people beside them, alongside them to kind of fill in the little blanks. They're not great Detail people. I live with one, not great detail people, but cast the big vision and just really want to bring you alongside. In work, sevens tend to cast the big vision, go for it, and then they get bored and burnt out in the little details. So you really have to watch your sevens there. When they start to experience the negative emotions, they really don't like it. They really don't know what to do with it. So a lot of times sevens are also addicts because to take away the feeling, they have to replace it with something that gives you euphoria and the good things. So when a lot of times you got to check in on your sevens when something's sad, because they're trying to like mask it with other, like pile really fun, good stuff on top. It's really interesting to watch a seven in like moral duress, or not moral, in emotional duress. Like they don't like it at all. So those are your sevens. What'd you say?
They must be suffering right now.
Oh, yeah. Check on your sevens. They're not okay. Like most of them, they can be introverts, but they're not. Mainly they're extroverts and they value company and people so much. So no, those are your sevens, the enthusiasts. We'll go real quick through 8 and 9. That way, Bev, you can ask questions regarding anything you want to, because I know it's going to go long.
I know.
Okay, 8s. These are the most aggressive number. Okay, 8s are the boss. They're the challengers, is what they're called, and they are. I like to think of an 8 just like they can be teddy bears, like they can be aggressive, but at the end of the day, they have a tender heart. They're in the gut triad, so they're just going to go full force and run over you and not look back. A lot of times, a lot of great CEOs are 8s. They have a hard time with people who don't appreciate confrontation. So if you're dealing with an 8, they want you to give them pushback. They want to like hash it out with you right then. They kind of think it's fun, even like, and another number might be sitting there like, oh my gosh, like they're out to get me, but they're just really like riffing, they're just like, hey, like, I'm going to challenge you in your beliefs. I'm going to challenge pretty much everything you do. So 8s are the most dominant number. They can be the most intimidating number. Female 8s get the worst rap, in my opinion. I think they are usually like what people think are the B word. Just
nasty, mean speak.
Yeah, just they know what they want, and they're not really gonna take anything else but what they want, and they're going to go straight into it.
Yeah, so the thing with the 8 and the reason why I feel like they get, and females specifically, is because they listen to their gut and then they make a decision and then they're, oh, that's it. You can't.
Triad, they're very future. They're in the future stance and they're in the aggressive stance. So it's like, boom, all the things, plus they have that personality that's just no BS. And you get what you get with them. And that is like the most appreciative thing of an 8 is you get what you get. Like you don't have to guess. You don't have to second guess. They're just like, where you stand with them.
And for the record, the reason why I feel like they get, because I know a lot of 8s, and listen, I thought I was an 8 for a while, but I'm not. And the reason why, and like, because you might listen to this and be like, oh, I'm every number, because I felt like that too, but there's a nuance to it, right? The 6, sometimes I thought I was a 1, I thought I was an 8 and a 3 and a 6, right? Because 6s want to have that righteous, like I want to be right, but it comes from, needing to reason the fear, and you need to like see the fear. But an 8, they're not afraid. They're like, whatever, like this is it, and come at me. They're the ones that are like gonna punch you in the face and then be fine, but out of love, because they can still love you, but like want my way or no way.
Yeah, they're not thinking about repercussions. They're not thinking relationally what this is going to do. As a 2 would be, because 2s can also be very aggressive. They also go through an 8 in a pathway, which you can't even get into that today. Your brain will just explode. But just, that's just the difference between like a 2 and an 8, say, because they are not thinking relationally what this is doing constantly. They're just thinking about like how am I going to get this done? And how am I going to get it done the way I know it should get done?
Yeah.
So
I love eights.
I love eights too. I actually like male eights. I feel like I get along with like better than any other number. Male eights.
What I also appreciate and love about the eight is that they don't have any of these feelings. Like they are a gut, but because they just say what they mean and what they think at all times,
Don't
care about the repercussions. They're not trapped in their brain like I am. Like, oh, what's gonna happen if I do blah blah blah?
Yeah, totally. It's just like an appreciation for them. Like, oh, I know where I stand. I know what they expect, and
eight, my husband will be like, are you sure you're not an eight? Because they tend to not, they'll be like, hey, do you want to come with me to the grocery store to help me? And an eight will be like, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I want to.
I don't want to. Like they won't be like, oh, I'm gonna pick up my kid. No, they're just gonna say no. They're gonna say what they mean.
Yes. Exactly. And counterphobic sixes, which is what Beverly is, mimic eights. Mm-hmm. It's just she has that fear and that inner committee where she's constantly like, ooh, anything can happen, and so yeah. Okay, last number, nines. Nines are the peacemakers. And nines, I love my nines because they're the most diplomatic people. They cringe at the thought of confrontation and dysfunction and anything that is like in disharmony.
I'm laughing because my husband's a nine and it's so
they don't like that. And so, they are incredibly great advice givers because they have this like bird's eye view of things that other numbers I don't think have. Their gut responders. So a lot of times if they have conflict, they will have like visceral response to conflict. Like all of my nine friends will be like, I was shaking all day. And I'm like, why? Like from that email? Like, and they're just like, it felt so confrontational. And they're just like shaking. They have like a literal physical visceral responses to confrontation a lot of times. So you can see that in unhealth. They're not like the two, although the two are very mistyped. But a nine doesn't exactly know in times of stress or turmoil or like someone struggling with something. They don't always feel comfortable coming along and helping. They usually retract to avoid any weird confrontation or misunderstood feelings, or they don't want to overstep their boundaries. They just want to like remain in their comfy bubble. I always say nines are creatures of the comfort. They like their blankets and they like their routine and they like their people who they can count on. They don't really love new experiences because what kind of scenarios could that bring? So they're really creatures of comfort,
habit, like their habit.
Yeah, creatures of habit. They just love the expected in life. Yeah. So they're very thinking repressed in that way. They can like kind of get into a rut and a lot of times come across as lazy. Mm-hmm. Like nines really can come across as lazy and apathetic. Mm. But it's just they're like protecting themselves from having to like feel conflict or something new. They just don't really thrive in those kind of scenarios.
But they're so calming. I mean, my husband is literally like they're very like they're going to be the rock. They're going to be the quiet rock that no one's paying attention to, but then you're holding on.
And they don't want the attention at all, and that they are also really great employees. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not like heaping all this new visionary stuff on them and not giving them any direction to figure it out for themselves. You see? So yes, but the nines in my life are like literally the best friends when it comes to like, here's the advice, because they're just so like confident in seeing it from all angles and then just like dropping it down and they do it in such a kind way. I don't know. Nines are just like the best deliverers of bad news.
I mean, I also love, I mean, my husband is fascinating, and this is probably partly due to his job, but like he'll go into a party and he will not say a word, but
Yeah.
then afterwards, he will know every single conversation that happened. He'll be able to like decipher it. He could, and sometimes he won't be able to do it in that moment, but like the next day he'll be like, well, I really think this person needs to do blah 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 because he was processing whatever he heard. And I was like, they didn't even talk to you.
But they're those like really intuitive, wise counsel is a lot of times. Nines in health, nines in unhealth can be kind of lazy and apathetic and not as action oriented. So, that can create some issues sometimes, but in their health operating, man, you want like just to be surrounded by a lot of nines. They're awesome.
They also go on healthy six, right? So, we can't talk about it on this, but like they are on that 6 track. So sometimes my husband will be up at night being like, and not 6 like I am, like catastrophic 6, but like
just the stress and anxiety.
yeah, like if he hear like, we had the snow's melting on our roof. And so he's like, oh no, what if we have to get a whole new roof? What if we have to blah, 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 so he's not like keeping up on it, but he'll automatically like go to worst case.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The pathways there's triangles of pathways of numbers, which we just can't even talk about. But yeah, a 6, a 9 will often operate in that stress place.
Yeah, when they feel stressed, like when feet are to the fire, because each number. And so now here, one of the things too that I just want you to clarify, oftentimes when we're talking about this stuff is that people are still different, right? And you can have different personalities and still
totally. Yes. So yeah, and I think that's really important to note. Thanks for saying that, but like, because the tendency will want to be like, well, Nicki said she's the 3, but I'm nothing like her. And that's the like greatness of the Enneagram is you don't have to look, it's not monolithic. It's not like, that's why it's not Myers-Briggs or another personality test where you're like, oh, they're just extroverted, like, no, you can be like, I'm a very like low capacity 3. I like a lot of my friends literally get like 5 hours of sleep who are 3s, and they will like read and record themselves on a book because they've all written books, and they're just like really high achievers, like doing stuff all the time. I'm like, you know what? I do one thing a day that's productive, and the rest of the day just, it's all up to me. Maybe I'll take a nap, maybe I'll Marco Polo Beverly. I don't know what else the day can handle, but I'm over here just chilling because I did one really productive thing, and I just operate well in that. But the core of me is still like, I want to succeed and I want to be the best, and I want people to admire me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So people do show up differently. So it's exactly like, it's not like, oh, I'm like that. I'm not like Beverly. I don't stress about sex trafficking.
Not many people do, but Beverly is in that category. But you still might be a 6 if you don't worry about that.
Yeah, but it was, it's very, it can be very powerful, but it's also just powerful too. Like, when you're working with your clients, because as you start to listen for cues, like you don't necessarily have to be like, what's your Enneagram number? Like I am like, if I'm working with someone, I'll ask them because it's so insightful because I know how to connect with
like, are you a 5? Oh, okay. Know what I'm dealing with now. And I do think it's important to say that too, Bev, like just not to label people. When you get into this, it's really hard not to be like, that's so 6 of you, Beverly. I mean, like just dismiss it all. Or I do that to my husband all the time. I'm like, wow, you're really like 7ing out right now. But that's not helpful to like throw labels on them, because ultimately what you want to do as trainers, as people who are teaching high level things, you want to bring people alongside. So just kind of knowing, if they don't know, you can kind of like get to know the Enneagram, so you can kind of like just have it in the back of your mind that it's different for somebody who's a 3 and somebody who's a 5. Yeah. You're going to have very different struggles in that area.
Absolutely. You know, and this word gets tossed around a lot, so I'll be cautious in using it, but like a 6 can't, and I have a 7 wing. So this is, you had, we didn't even get to talk about wings today, but like you might have like two, I'm a 6 and I have that 7 wing. So I tend to, I tend to live like a 7, similar as components of a 7. However, that toxic positivity does not do well for a 6. Like when I'm working through something, you have to give me the space to work through the worst case scenarios. You can't say to me like, no, Beverly, just be positive, be positive. And I know it sounds weird coming from me because I tend to be like a very positive thinker. I always look for the good, but I still, you have to let me live in the process.
You have to arrive there on your own. Yeah. And so Beverly was talking about the wings. So every number on either side of your number. So I'm a 3. So on either side of me, there's a 2 and a 4. And oftentimes you can lean to one of those numbers, which will also kind of change a lot of things for you. So, if you're a 3 with a 2 wing, you kind of are a pretty, like, your profession is probably something that really wants to help people and teach people. You don't mind being on stage and being a present, being a personality. Whereas if you're a 3 wing 4, you're a little more withdrawn and you can relax in your feelings. I really go a lot to my 4 where I'm like, I did one really productive thing a day that doesn't define me. It doesn't make me good or bad, but I'm going to like go chill and listen and like strum my guitar and just blow the rest of the day away because I just feel like doing that, so you can kind of take on characteristics of that either number on either side of you. So that's kind of what she's saying. But yeah, so just imagine like for Beverly, for a 6, the worst thing you can do for a 6, if you're teaching them, training them, trying to get them results, is to pat them on the head and tell them it'll be fine. Right? Is that true? Would you say?
Like that, that's why I was like toxic positivity. When someone's just like, you need to be positive. It's like, no, like, let me process it. Let me think it through. And then I'm going to come to that.
Yeah.
Like, give me that space in the room. Like, that's why, I love my husband. I mean, I love my husband for many reasons, but like, he literally, most people, if I was like, when he looks over at me crying, he's going to work me through it and actually like say like, okay, well, logically, this is what is going to happen, as opposed to what most people would do would be like, are you crazy right now?
Yeah. Yes. And so I just think that's why I love this tool. It's just so amazing to like be able to identify like this isn't going to work for this person, you know what I mean? And like same with Beverly, like if you're working with a 7 who are the relentless, not like toxic positivity, I like relentless positivity is my term for it.
I love that.
Relentlessly positive. So me coming at him or somebody else or a client who's a 7 and being like, bringing all the negative juice to them at first, that is just going to shut them down totally. So you have to come at a 7 with a totally different energy. You have to find it in yourself, even if you're like, bro, like what? Like you got to find it in yourself to approach them with that positive note. Let's do some positive reinforcements, let's talk about the positive things that you do. And then, if you need to splice in some of the less than stellar stuff, it has to be done in little chunks.
Yeah, so good. And it's just such a powerful tool. Okay, we could talk for like 12 years, but I've got to get my kids. Yeah. So Nicki, thank you so much for coming to teach. Where can my people find you and learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to my Instagram. It's _ Nicki, Nicki Wilson _ Nicki Wilson _ And then I have in my bio, my podcast, the Crazy Confidence Podcast, and other ways you can find me.
Okay, cool. And we'll link all of that up. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was so fun.
You're the best 6 ever.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I know this was a long one, but if you like this video, go ahead, hit like. hit subscribe, and tap that bell to be notified when the latest and greatest video comes out. And I'll catch you on the next one.